Are you ready to escape reality? To journey into worlds where the ordinary bends and the extraordinary takes hold? Welcome to Narrative Oasis, your sanctuary for stories that will grip your soul and refuse to let go. Here shadows dance with secrets, and every whisper holds a universe of thrills. We don't just tell stories, we craft experiences. From heart-pounding horror that will keep you up at night, to mind-bending tales that question everything you thought you knew. This is your escape, your adventure, your private island of imagination. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let your mind drift away. The first story is about to begin. If you're looking for an unforgettable journey, you've found your home. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an escape. Let's begin. I'm David. After the layoffs, I did something desperate. I answered a Craigslist ad. Night auditor wanted. Midnight to 6 a.m. Isolated location. Cash only. The interview, if you could call it that, was just a note taped to the door of the abandoned Kronos Insurance building. It read, "Your resume is your presence. Start tonight." Look, I really needed the money. I'm recording this right now from the manager's office up on the 9th floor. My shift was supposed to end 3 days ago, but I can't leave. The building. It seems to have onboarded me. That first night was just deeply eerie. Imagine a vast open-plan office, a perfect time capsule from the 70s. Teal carpets, dark wood paneling on the walls, and the constant hum of old fluorescent lights. My duties were incredibly vague. Monitor the premises, file any active claims. Simple enough, right? So I went looking for the claims department. I found it, but the filing cabinets were all empty. Bone dry. Then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., the first memo slid out of this ancient pneumatic tube system on the wall. The paper was yellowed with age. It read, "Claim number 731, lost time. Client reports missing 47 minutes from Tuesday afternoon. Adjuster. Assigned to D. Porter Temp." That's me. Yeah, I'm D. Porter. There was no client name on it, just that case number. I had no idea what to do, so I just scribbled pending on the form and put it in an out tray. About an hour later, I looked over and the tray was empty. The memo was just ... gone. Night 2 was when things started to get truly strange. More memos started coming through the tube. Lost voices. Lost reflections. Lost dreams. Every single one of them was assigned to me. It began to dawn on me. This building, this entire place, was processing metaphysical losses. And I, the temporary night auditor, was the one responsible for them. Then I started seeing things. A man soaking wet in a dated suit, crying silently at a desk that I swear hadn't been there a minute before. A woman typing furiously on a phantom typewriter, her fingers literally bleeding ink onto the invisible keys. They weren't ghosts in the traditional sense. They felt more like ... echoes. Residual data. Last night, I finally got my own memo. It was from building management. It read, "Performance review, D. Porter. Excellent assimilation. Converting temporary position to permanent. Benefits include perpetual employment, housing on site, memory of former life to be filed under past claims." That's when I knew I was in real trouble. I ran for the elevator, but it wouldn't respond. I tried the stairs, but the fire doors are sealed shut, solid steel. I looked out the windows and all I could see was static, gray shifting fog, even though I know it's a sunny day outside. The fluorescent lights overhead never turn off. They just hum and hum and hum. And the strangest thing, I'm not hungry anymore. I'm not even tired. It feels like I'm becoming part of the staff. The other employees. They're becoming clearer now. They nod at me in the halls. It's like I'm finally in focus for them. The man in the wetsuit, he even handed me a file this morning. I opened it. It was a photograph of me as a child, playing in a sandbox. The photo was water-stained. This building isn't abandoned. It's a corporate afterlife. A processing center for all the things the world has lost or forgotten, and they needed a new night auditor. Someone to file the claims to keep the great cosmic ledger balanced. But the problem is, the system is infinite. There's always more loss to account for. My coffee tastes like dust now. When I look at my reflection in the dark computer monitor, it's fading. It's becoming transparent. I think they're deducting my humanity from my first paycheck. It's a benefits package. Did mention sublimation of physical needs. I guess this is what they meant. So, if you're ever scrolling online late at night and you see an ad for a night auditor in some old forgotten building, please, for your own sake, don't answer it. They're always hiring and they never ever fire you. They just file you away. Wait, what's that sound? The pneumatic tube. It just delivered another canister. Let me see. Claim number 999, David Porter. Status, processing. I'm David. After the layoffs, I did something desperate. I answered a Craigslist ad. Night auditor wanted. 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., isolated location, cash only. It was sketchy. I knew it. But desperation has a way of blurring the edges of common sense. The interview was even stranger. It was just a note taped to the heavy glass door of the abandoned Kronos Insurance building downtown. You know the one, that ugly brown monolith that's been empty since the 90s. The note read, "Your resume is your presence. Start tonight." That's it. No phone number, no contact person, just an instruction. I should have walked away, but I needed the money and curiosity. Well, it's a powerful motivator. So here I am. I'm recording this on my phone, sitting in what looks like the manager's office on the 9th floor. My shift officially ended 3 days ago, but I can't leave. The building has onboarded me. That first night was just eerie. The sound of lifting that old metal shutter echoed through the dead quiet street. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed and flickered on. One by one, revealing this vast open-plan office straight out of the 1970s, teal carpets. Dark wood paneling everywhere, rows upon rows of empty desks. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and dust. My duties, according to another note I found on the security desk, were vague. Monitor the premises. File any active claims. I spent the first hour just walking the floor. It was a ghost town. I found the claims department, a cavernous room filled with filing cabinets. I pulled one open. It was empty. All of them were. So what claims was I supposed to be filing? I went back to the main desk, confused and a little creeped out, and just waited. Then, at 3:33 a.m., exactly, a whoosh and a clatter broke the silence. A cylinder shot out of the old pneumatic tube system, landing in the receiving basket. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, yellowed with age. Memo. It read, "Claim number 731. Lost time. Client reports missing 47 minutes from Tuesday afternoon. Adjuster. Assigned 2D Porter Temp. My name. David Porter." There was no client name. No details. Just a case number and a bizarre, impossible loss. What was I supposed to do with that? File a claim for lost time? I hesitated for a moment, then just scribbled pending on the bottom and placed it in an out tray on the desk. An hour later, I glanced over, and the tray was empty. The memo was gone. The second night was when things started to get truly strange. The memos kept coming, delivered by the pneumatic tube, with that same startling whoosh at random intervals. Lost voices, lost reflections, lost dreams. Claim for a misplaced sense of purpose. A claim for a childhood memory that had faded to gray. Each one was assigned to me, D. Porter, the temporary night auditor. I realized the building wasn't just abandoned. It was processing metaphysical losses, abstract griefs, the kind of things you can't insure against in the real world. And I was its sole clerical worker. That's when I started seeing them, the other employees. First, it was just flickers in my peripheral vision, a shadow moving between cubicles, a faint scent of perfume in an empty elevator. Then they became clearer. I saw a man in a soaking wetsuit, sitting at a desk that hadn't been there a minute before, crying silently, tears mixing with the water dripping onto the carpet. In another corner, a woman typed furiously on a phantom typewriter, her fingers bleeding black ink that stained the air before vanishing. They never looked at me. They were just performing their eternal duties. I tried to leave after that second shift. The sun was coming up. My 6 hours were done. But the main shutter wouldn't budge. The elevators wouldn't respond. Every fire exit was sealed shut, as if welded from the outside. I was trapped. I had no choice but to go back upstairs and wait for the next night to begin. Tonight, my third nighter? Is it my fifth day? The time is starting to blur. I received a different kind of memo. It wasn't a claim. It came from building management. It was a performance review. My performance review. It said D. Porter, excellent assimilation, converting temporary position to permanent, and then it listed the benefits. Perpetual employment, housing on site, memory of former life to be filed under past claims. That's when I knew. This isn't just a job. It's a sentence. The exits are sealed permanently now. When I look out the windows, I don't see the city anymore. Just a thick, gray, shifting static, like an old television with no signal, even though I know it's bright and sunny outside. The fluorescent lights never turn off. They just hum endlessly. A strange thing has happened. I'm not hungry anymore. Not tired. The physical needs I arrived with have just evaporated. I am becoming part of the staff. The other employees are clearer now, more solid. They nod at me in the halls, a silent acknowledgement from one lifer to another. The man in the wetsuit, I think his name is Arthur, handed me a file this morning.
Okay.
I opened it. It was a photograph of me as a child, playing in a sprinkler. The photo was water-stained. This building isn't abandoned. It's a corporate afterlife. It's a processing center for all the things the world has lost, forgotten, or misplaced. And they needed a new night auditor. Someone to file the endless stream of claims until the cosmic system is balanced. But I'm beginning to understand the terrible truth. The system is infinite. There's always more loss, more grief to be cataloged. I made myself a coffee an hour ago from the ancient machine in the break room. It tasted like dust and regret. When I look at my reflection in the dark computer monitor, it's fading. My features are becoming indistinct, blurry. I think they're deducting my humanity from my first paycheck. The benefits package did mention sublimation of physical needs. I guess that includes your soul. So if you're ever scrolling through job listings late at night and you see an ad for a night auditor in some old forgotten building, don't answer it. Don't even think about it. Walk away. They're always hiring. They never fire you. They just file you away. Wait, the tube. It just whistled. Another cylinder clattered into the basket. But this time, the sound coming from it is different. It's a voice. It's my own voice, distorted and hollow, echoing from the speaker grill, saying claim number 999, David Porter. Status, processing. Call ourselves the Gridwalkers. We explore abandoned office buildings in the financial district, charting the forgotten spaces of the city. 3 nights ago, I found something that wasn't on any blueprint, something that wasn't supposed to exist. A service stairwell hidden behind a false wall on sublevel 3 of the old Viridian Tower. I'm a solo artist now, not by choice. I'm solo because I'm the only one who remembers how to get out. And the stairwell. I think it's starting to forget me too. It all started as a standard exploration. Gray concrete, cold metal handrails, the familiar smell of dust and damp. I wedged the door open and started my descent. I counted the floors going down. Sublevel 4, sublevel 5, sublevel 6. It was standard at first, just what you'd expect. But then I started to notice things. The walls were too perfect. No pipes snaking along the surface. No electrical conduits. No junction boxes. Just smooth, seamless, poured concrete. The stairs themselves were too uniform, like they were printed by some giant machine. There were no landings, no breaks in the monotony, just a continuous spiraling descent into the earth. It felt wrong. Deeply wrong. My phone died at what I calculated should have been sublevel 15. The screen just went black. No low battery warning, just off. My watch, a simple analog one, froze. The hands stopped dead at 2:13 a.m. The only light I had left was my headlamp, cutting a sharp white cone into the oppressive darkness. That was my cue. I decided to go back up, to get back to the familiar world. I turned around and started the long climb. I climbed for what felt like an hour, maybe more. My legs burned, my lungs ached, the sweat was stinging my eyes. But the door to sublevel 3, the one I had wedged open, wasn't there. I kept going, sure I had just miscounted, that I was disoriented. But there was nothing, just more stairs, stretching endlessly upwards. The concepts of up and down became meaningless. There was no direction, no progress. There was only the stairwell. I had to stop to catch my breath, leaning against the cold concrete. That's when I heard the first whisper. It wasn't human. It didn't come from behind me or ahead of me. It came from the walls themselves. A faint, papery rustle, like thousands of old, dry pages turning all at once. And then the whisper said, my name. It's not just Maya, my full name. It's Maya Elizabeth Vance. It spoke in the voice of my second-grade teacher, Mrs. Gable, a woman who's been dead for 10 years. I ran. Panic took over. I scrambled down the stairs, tripping and catching myself, the beam of my headlamp bouncing wildly. The stairs blurred beneath my feet. The whispers multiplied. They swirled around me, a chorus of forgotten voices. The voice of a classmate I hadn't thought of since middle school. A barista from a coffee shop I used to frequent, a distant relative I met once at a funeral. And they weren't just whispering my name anymore. They were whispering facts about me. My childhood dog's name, Barnaby. The name of the boy I had my first kiss with behind the bleachers. My deepest, most secret shame from college, a secret I thought I had buried forever. The stairwell was remembering me. It was pulling my memories out, one by one, like tape being ripped from a reel. It was feeding on my past. The walls started to change. A new texture began to spread across the concrete, like static, but wet and dark. It crawled up the walls in time with the growing cacophony of whispers, an inky tide rising from the depths. I couldn't take it anymore. The voices, the running, the sheer wrongness of it all. I collapsed. My body just gave out and the world went dark. When I woke up, the whispers were gone. I was lying on a landing, the first landing I had seen in this entire place, and set into the wall was a single numbered door. The number wasn't a number, it was a symbol, sublevel G, the circle with a line through it, the null symbol. The door was unlocked. My hand trembled as I turned the knob. It opened into the main lobby of the Viridian Tower. Morning light streamed through the tall glass windows. The security guard at the front desk gave me a weird look, a mixture of confusion and annoyance. He said I'd been gone for 8 hours. 8 hours. It felt like an eternity. I thought I had escaped. I stumbled home in a daze, just grateful to be out, to be back in the real world. But I haven't really escaped. Not really. Back in my apartment, I found concrete dust in the treads of my boots, fine gray powder. I've tried to vacuum it up to scrub it out, but it won't go away. It's a permanent stain. My digital photos from that night, the ones I took before my phone died, they're all gone. When I try to open them, it's just gray static, the same texture I saw crawling up the walls. And the worst part, sometimes when I'm on a normal staircase at the mall in my apartment building, I'll hear a whisper. Just one. Faint and fleeting. It's my own voice from just a week ago, whispering something I've already forgotten. A grocery list. A phone number. A small, insignificant piece of my own life, now gone. The stairwell eats memories. It uses them as fuel, as building blocks, and I think it left a door open in my mind. A service entrance. Because sometimes when I close my eyes, I feel something stirring, something that isn't me. Things from sublevel G are starting to wander up into my thoughts, leaving their own concrete dust behind, making themselves at home. Sometimes in the quiet of my apartment, I'll hear it. A distant, echoing footstep, not in rhythm with my own movements. It's an echo of a step I took minutes before, played back from somewhere deep inside my own head. It's learning my gait. It's learning how to walk in me. I don't know how to make it stop. Thanks for listening. If you find yourself drawn to forgotten places, be careful what doors you open. You might not like what's waiting on the other side. Follow 4 more stories from the grid. I'm Leo, and I need to tell someone this story before it's too late. It all started with a breakdown. My piece of crap car, a Honda that had seen better decades, finally gave up the ghost. Of course, it had to happen in the middle of a torrential downpour, in an industrial park that Google Maps seemed to think was a myth. Rain was coming down so hard it felt like the sky was trying to drown the world. My phone was dead. I was soaked to the bone, shivering, and completely, utterly screwed. Then I saw it. Through the sheets of rain, a single light flickered weakly, painting a sickly yellow glow on the wet asphalt. It was a sign, Franklin's Forge, below it in smaller letters. 24-hour auto service. It looked like one of those old-school greasy spoon garages your grandpa would talk about. At that point, it could have been the gate to hell, and I would have run towards it. It was my only option. The main bay door was partially open, a dark mouth inviting me in from the storm. I ducked under it, the relative silence inside a stark contrast to the roaring rain. The air was thick with the smell of old oil, cold metal, and something else. Something coppery and vaguely sweet. Rows of classic cars, beautiful machines from the 50s and 60s, sat shrouded in tarps like sleeping giants. Some were skeletons, half disassembled, while others looked like they just needed a good polish. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone here? Need some help?" My voice just echoed back at me, swallowed by the vast, cavernous space. No answer. Utter silence, save for the drip, drip, drip of water from a leak in the corrugated iron roof. I figured the mechanic must be in an office or a break room somewhere. I needed a phone. My desperation was a physical ache in my chest. I started walking deeper into the garage, past engine blocks hanging from chains like sides of beef. That's when I saw the door. It was a simple wooden door, set into the back wall, with a small, grimy window. A faint, unsteady light seeped out from under it. I pushed it open. It led to a set of steep, rickety wooden stairs descending into a basement. My gut screamed at me to turn back, to go wait in the rain. But the thought of a phone, a lifeline, pushed me forward. I went down those stairs, and I learned a hard lesson. Some places advertise 24-hour service because their customers aren't exactly temporal. The basement was a labyrinth of rusting metal. Engine blocks were stacked like gravestones. Shelves overflowed with parts, but they looked wrong, twisted. Carburetors had too many valves. Distributors had strange, intricate wiring. And I saw a box of spark plugs that glowed with a faint pulsing blue light, even though they weren't connected to anything. It felt like I'd stumbled into the workshop of a mad god who built machines to run on nightmares instead of gasoline. At the very back of this mechanical morgue was another door. This one was different. Heavy steel, with a thick porthole-style window made of frosted glass. A small, professionally engraved plaque was bolted to it. It read, "Showroom Final Models." My curiosity, that stupid, fatal human trait, got the better of me. I turned the heavy wheel handle, and the door swung open with a deep, groaning hiss. Inside, it wasn't a showroom. It was a shrine. The room was clean, sterile, and lit by a single focused spotlight from above. And in the center of that light was a car, a pristine black 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air. It was impossibly beautiful. The chrome gleamed. The black paint was so deep you felt like you could fall into it. It didn't have a single speck of dust on it. It looked like it had just rolled off the assembly line. The driver's side window was down. The keys, attached to a simple brass fob, were already in the ignition, glinting in the light. It was a perfect, silent invitation. On the passenger seat, a map was neatly folded. I leaned in, the smell of new leather filling my lungs. I picked up the map. A route was highlighted in bright red ink. It started right here at Franklin's Forge. It wound its way out of the industrial park onto the main highway. It ended directly at my home address. It was a trap. I know that now. I knew it even then, on some deep, primal level. But in that moment, soaked, cold, and desperate, it didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a miracle. Gift a way out, and I took it. I'm not proud of that. I climbed into the driver's seat, the leather sighing as I settled in. I turned the key. The engine didn't just start. It roared to life with a sound that was pure power, a deep, throaty rumble that vibrated right through my bones. I put it in gear and drove out of that basement, up a ramp I hadn't even noticed, and back out into the rain. The car drove like a dream. The power steering was effortless, the engine a symphony of controlled force. But the route on the map, it was wrong. Took turns that shouldn't have existed, onto streets I'd never seen before. I left onto a street sign that read Memory Lane. A right on to Regret Boulevard. The names were written in a strange, spidery script that seemed to squirm if I looked at it for too long. The buildings outside my window were warped versions of my own life. I passed my old high school, but all the windows were blacked out, as if it were a hollowed-out skull. I saw my first apartment building, but it was leaning at a sickening, impossible angle, ready to collapse. It was a guided tour through a twisted museum of my own past, and the car itself. It was an accomplice. The fuel gauge never moved from full. The elegant clock on the dashboard was frozen at 3:18 a.m., the exact time I had entered the garage. I tried the radio, hoping for a human voice, for anything to break the spell. It only picked up one station. It was static at first, then a man's voice whispering. He was giving repair instructions, but they were in reverse. I could just make out phrases like, "Torque the head gasket of your past regrets to 90 pound-feet of guilt." Panic finally clawed its way through my desperation. I tried to deviate from the red line on the map, to take a familiar turn. The steering wheel locked solid in my hands. The gas pedal went soft under my foot, then depressed on its own. The Bel Air was driving itself, a phantom chauffeur with a one-track mind. It was following the map to its final destination, and that destination was a brand new, gleaming version of Franklin's Forge, standing right at the end of my own street, where Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning rose garden should have been. The bay door was wide open, waiting for me, waiting for the car's return. I didn't wait for it to stop. The car was slowing, preparing to turn into the driveway of that phantom garage. I threw the door open, unbuckled my seatbelt, and jumped. I hit the wet pavement hard, rolling, feeling the skin scrape from my arms and knees. I scrambled to my feet and I ran. I ran without looking back. The sound of that perfect V8 engine idling behind me, a patient, predatory purr. I burst through my front door, slammed it, locked it, and collapsed against it, gasping for air. After a few minutes, I dared to peek out the window. The street was empty. No Franklin's Forge, no black Bel Air. The rain had stopped, and there in my driveway was my own car. What? My beat-up piece-of-crap Honda. I went outside, my heart pounding. I put the key in the ignition. It started up on the first try, running perfectly. It was like it never happened. A hallucination, a stress-induced nightmare. That's what I tried to tell myself. Since that night, things are wrong. I find fresh motor oil stains on my kitchen floor that weren't there before. I have nightmares where I'm back in that Bel Air. My hands fused to the steering wheel, driving down an endless, twisting road. And sometimes when I'm driving, when I'm lost on a real road, I'll see it out of the corner of my eye, down a side street I've never noticed before. A single flickering sign for Franklin's Forge. The bay door is always open. That car is a final model, a vehicle designed for a one-way trip, and it's still out there, waiting to finish its delivery. It has my scent. It remembers my desperation. It knows where I live. And in the garage business, they always finish the job. Sometimes late at night, I think I can hear it. A distant, smooth engine, idling just around the corner, waiting for me. I'm Eleanor. I'm a photographer of forgotten places. For my latest project, Skyline Sanctuaries, I hunt for abandoned rooftop gardens, forgotten oases on top of old grand hotels. The Crown Regency was supposed to be the crown jewel of the collection. 40 stories high, a lavish 1920s paradise left to rot. I made my way up at dusk, chasing the last light of the golden hour, camera in hand. The wind howled up there, whipping a loose tarp against a rusted frame. I found the garden, but the plants weren't just dead. They were petrified. They weren't plants anymore. This is what grows in the silence, 40 stories above a sleeping city. As I stepped in, my boots didn't crunch on dry leaves, but on something brittle, almost glassy. It was a sculpture garden of fossilized longing. Rose bushes carved from gray, porous stone, their thorns as sharp as obsidian daggers. Benches that were once living trees, their wood grain frozen in mid-flow like a paused river. In the center, a fountain where the water was a solid, clear cascade of quartz. It was breathtaking, utterly, completely silent. The constant hum of the city below, the sirens, the traffic, none of it reached here. It was a pocket of absolute quiet, a vacuum in the sky. I raised my camera and started taking pictures. My flash popped, bouncing off the quartz fountain. And in that brief, blinding reflection, I saw movement. Behind me, a stone figure, shaped like a man in an old-fashioned bellhop's uniform, was standing by the access door. His face was smooth, featureless stone. I swear, he wasn't there a second ago. Low grinding sound, like immense stones shifting against each other, echoed through the garden. I backed away, my heart pounding in my throat. The figure didn't move, but as I passed each petrified plant, I started to hear whispers. Not with my ears. It was a feeling deep in my bones. Vibrations. The echoes of words spoken here decades ago, absorbed by the plants and now slowly being released as they turned to stone. I do, whispered a stone rose bush as I passed. I'm so sorry, grated from a stone bench. Goodbye, sighed the quartz fountain, the sound like cracking ice. This garden, it didn't just grow plants. It preserved moments of overwhelming emotion, proposals, apologies, final farewells, and turned them into a geological record of human feeling. The bellhop figure slowly raised a stony hand and pointed deeper into the garden. I don't know why, but I felt compelled to follow, my feet moving on their own. In the very center of this stone graveyard was a single living plant, small, delicate weeping willow, its long, graceful leaves the color of polished silver. Beneath it, on a stone tablet, words were being carved as I watched. As if by an invisible hand, Eleanor misses the sound of her daughter's laugh. My breath hitched. My daughter. She died 5 years ago. I never speak of it. I bury it so deep no one could ever know. How could this place know my most guarded secret? As if in answer, a gentle breeze rustled the silver leaves of the willow. They didn't sound like leaves. They tinkled like tiny wind chimes, and the sound they made formed a perfect, clear fragment of a child's laughter. Laughter. The willow was offering me a deal. I understood it instantly. It wanted my deepest, quietest grief. It wanted to consume my sorrow. In exchange, it would let me hear her laugh again, captured in its silver leaves, playing for me forever. All I had to do was stay, to become a part of the garden. My grief would nourish it, and I could sit beneath this tree for eternity, listening to the one sound I longed for more than anything. The stone bellhop stood by the exit, a silent sentinel guarding the door back to the world. The choice was mine. Leave and take my suffocating sorrow with me, or stay and let it fossilize into something beautiful and permanent. I'm recording this from the rooftop edge, looking down at the city lights. The willow's chimes are so sweet. The stone benches look so peaceful. The city below is so loud, so messy with its unfiltered, unpreserved pain. Everyone down there is just carrying their hurt around with them. Here, it can be made into art. Maybe some silences are better kept. Maybe some grief is too heavy to carry. The sound of her laugh, it's so clear, so heartbreakingly beautiful. Maybe I'll just stay and listen for a little while longer. My name's Dex. Me and my crew, we skate where we're not supposed to. Our best spot? The Midvale Galleria. It's been closed for 10 years. A concrete ghost just waiting for us. Last Saturday we broke in, slipping through the food court loading dock. It was perfect. The wide, smooth floors, the echoes of our wheels in the huge, dark space. Everything was normal for about an hour. Then, from the second level, we heard music. Not our music, not the punk we blast from our phones. It was mall music. Not that cheesy, smooth jazz they pipe in to make you shop. We looked up the storefronts that were boarded up a minute ago. Their security gates were up. Their lights were on, casting a weird, sterile glow. But they weren't selling clothes or gadgets. They were selling moments, and they were open for business. We skated closer. The first store was called Kaleidoscope Eyes. The sign flickered. Inside, it sold glimpses of your own future in its fitting room mirrors. Just a flash, a single-second you, stepping into a job interview, you old and gray and alone, you laughing with a family you don't have yet, random, terrifying clips of a life you haven't lived.
Oh.
Next to it was the last laugh. It looked like a comedy club. There was a silhouette on stage telling jokes. But the jokes were our deepest, darkest secrets, the ones we never tell anyone. And the empty seats. They roared with laughter, a canned track that felt way too real. Then there was regrets, as a long clearance aisle filled with our own bad decisions. Each mistake had a price tag, not in dollars, but in years of your life. That's when we knew we had to get out. We turned to run, but the mall, it was changing. The huge fountain was suddenly where the food court should have been. The big anchor stores had swapped places. The layout was twisting, the directory map on the wall literally rewriting itself around our panic. My friend Chloe, she'd made a mistake. She looked into one of the mirrors at Kaleidoscope Eyes. She saw something. A future where she was screaming, just screaming and screaming. She hasn't spoken a single word since. She just points at things, things that aren't there, her eyes wide with the terror we can't see. Suddenly, the mall's announcement system crackled to life. It wasn't a normal voice. It was a chorus of whispers, all speaking at once. Attention shoppers. The mall is now aware of your presence. Please proceed to a retail outlet for assimilation. Unpurchased memories will be confiscated. Thank you for shopping at Midvale. We ran past the department store, mannequins in the display windows, their plastic heads turned to watch us. Not all at once, which would have been bad enough. No, it was one by one, their dead eyes following us as we sprinted by. We finally saw it. It's an exit sign glowing red at the end of a long, brightly lit corridor. The sign above the hallway said customer service. We didn't have a choice. At the end was a desk. and sitting behind it was a woman. Her face was smooth, plastic, like a mannequin's, with a painted-on smile. But her eyes were tiny closed-circuit TV screens, and on them could see ourselves running through the mall from a dozen different angles. She spoke, and her voice was a perfect recording of my mother's, dripping with disappointment. "Your adolescent defiance is not on sale today," she said, "but your fear of being forgotten, that's a premium item. We'll take that as payment for your trespass." There was a loud buzz, like a barcode scanner at a checkout. I felt a painless, hollow pull behind my eyes. A memory, my 10th birthday party, the taste of the chocolate cake, my friend singing, it just faded to gray fog, gone, traded for our escape. The exit door behind her clicked open. We stumbled out into the night, into the real parking lot, gasping for air. We were out. But we weren't okay. Chloe still points at nothing. And my birthday is just a date on a calendar to me now, completely empty of feeling or meaning in my phone. I don't know how, but it gets a perfect 5-bar signal whenever I'm near the Galleria. It sends me notifications. Ads for stores that don't exist, for products I suddenly desperately crave, limited time offer, buy back your stolen memory, low monthly payments available, the mall is hungry. It needs new merchandise, new memories to stock its shelves. It knows where we live, and I think it considers us loyal customers now. It's just waiting for us to come back and finish our shopping. I'm Marcus. I travel for work a lot. Cheap hotels are my life, a blur of stained carpets and questionable plumbing. But the traveler's repose. This place was the cheapest yet. It had that smell, you know? The one that's a mix of stale cigarette smoke, industrial cleaner, and a hint of something much, much older. The clerk, a man whose face seemed permanently fixed in a weary smile, slid key number 314 across the worn wooden counter. He leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't mind the neighbors," he said, his eyes flicking down the hallway behind me. "Whatever you do, don't try the other doors." Strange advice, but I was too tired to care. My room was at the very end of a long, long hallway. The carpet was a dizzying floral pattern in shades of brown and orange that probably went out of style before I was born. I just wanted to drop my bag, order some terrible room service, and pass out. I should have listened to him. I really, really should have. It must have been around 2 in the morning when I woke up. At first, I didn't know what pulled me from sleep. Then I heard it. A child, crying. It was coming from the room right next to mine, 315. It wasn't a loud, angry cry, but a soft, heartbreaking sob that seemed to seep through the thin walls. I waited, thinking a parent would comfort them, but the crying just went on. It tugged at something in me. Couldn't just lie there. I got out of bed, pulled on my pants, and walked over to their door. I knocked softly. "Hello? Is everything okay in there?" No answer. The crying stopped instantly. The silence that followed was somehow more unsettling. I noticed the door wasn't fully latched. It was just slightly ajar. Against my better judgment, I gave it a gentle push. Swung open, not into a dimly lit hotel room, but into another hallway. It was identical to mine. The same hideous floral carpet, the same tarnished brass sconce lights casting a sickly yellow glow. It stretched on for what looked like forever. That was just the first door. The new hallway had the same ugly carpet, the same lights, but when I looked at the room numbers, my blood ran cold. 415, 416. I was on the fourth floor now. How was that possible? I'd come from the third, spun around, expecting to see the door I'd just come through. The portal back to my own hallway was gone. In its place was just a flat wall and a new door. This one marked 515. A wave of vertigo washed over me. So intense, I had to brace myself against the wall. This wasn't a building. This was a trap, a labyrinth of potential spaces, a shuffling deck of realities. Every door led to another iteration of the same hallway. Each one shifted slightly. A different floor number, a different era. I stumbled down one hall where the electric lights were replaced by flickering gas lamps, hissing softly in the silence. With plaster crumbling from the ceiling and the floral carpet turning to a black, moldy mush under my feet, panic set in. I started opening doors frantically, desperately searching for an exit, for anything that looked like the real world. Room 714. I pushed the door open and froze. It was my room, or a version of it, sun-drenched and pristine. No. A family from the 1950s was inside, gathered around a small black and white television, frozen mid-laugh. The woman in her house dress, the man with his pipe, the two kids in their pajamas. They were like statues, a perfect, silent diorama of a happy moment I had no right to see. I backed away slowly and closed the door. Room 814 was the opposite. The moment I cracked it open, a wave of heat and the acrid reek of smoke hit me. The entire room was burned out, a charred black husk. Everything was melted and twisted, the ghost of a fire that had happened or was yet to happen. I slammed it shut, my heart pounding. Room 914 was filled to the ceiling with murky water. A desk chair and a lampshade bobbed gently against the glass, suspended in a silent, watery tomb. That's when I heard the new sound. It was a methodical, slow knocking, coming from a door further down the hall. It wasn't a frantic, panic sound. It was patient, calm, knock, ... knock, ... My feet carried me towards it, as if pulled by a string. I found the door it was coming from. It was different from the others. It had no number. It was just a small, tarnished brass plaque. The engraved words were faint, but I could make them out. The guest who never left. The knocking was definitely coming from behind it. Knock, ... knock, ... Each one a perfect, measured beat. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity, desperation. I pressed my ear against the cold, solid wood. I held my breath. A voice whispered from the other side. A voice as dry as dust and old paper. I can show you the way out, it rasped. I know all the doors. I've been opening them for a very, very long time. Just let me out. A trade. My freedom for yours. For a split second I was tempted. So tempted. An escape. An end to this nightmare. But then the clerk's warning echoed in my mind. Don't try the other doors. He never said why. I always assumed he meant for my own safety. But what if I had it backwards? What if he wasn't trying to keep me safe from what was behind the doors? What if he was trying to keep whatever was behind them? I didn't wait for another knock. I ran. I threw myself at doors at random, tumbling through a kaleidoscope of impossible hallways. One was lined with mirrors, reflecting infinite versions of me, all running in terror. Another was built sideways, forcing me to crawl along a wall that was now the floor. In one, the carpet wasn't carpet at all, but living, breathing moss that squelched under my feet. Then finally, I saw it. A door at the end of a hall, with a sign above it glowing in familiar, beautiful red letters. Exit. Hope surged through me. I didn't even slow down. I burst through it, stumbling, expecting to feel the cool night air or see a parking lot. I was back in my original hallway, in front of my room, number 314. The floral carpet, the dim lights, everything. A wave of relief so powerful it made my knees weak washed over me. It was over. I fumbled for my key card, my hands shaking. I slid it into the lock. The light turned green. I pushed the door open. Inside was not my room. It was the floral carpeted hallway. Again, stretching on into infinity. My suitcase was sitting there on the floor, right where I would have dropped it, as if it had been waiting for me. And on top of it, gleaming under the dim light, was a fresh key card. 314, then the knocking started again. From the room right next to where I stood, from the door with no number. Knock, ... knock, ... The guest knows I'm still here. It's patient. It has infinite doors to try. And I know with a sickening certainty that one of them is mine. I'm sitting on my suitcase now, recording this on my phone. Down the hall, I can see the red glow of the exit sign. I know if I walk to it, if I go through that door, I'll just loop right back here. It's not an exit, it's a reset button. The only way out is through a door, and the only entity that knows the correct sequence of doors, ... is behind the one without a number, the clerk. He wasn't protecting me. He was maintaining the prison. This place, this traveler's repose, it needs a keeper. And now I understand. I'm not a guest anymore. I'm the new maintenance man, and I think my first duty is to answer that knock. I'm Chloe. I missed the last train. Again, the platform was completely empty, a ghost town under the city. I glanced up at the schedule screen, and my heart sank. It just blinked back at me. Next train. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. My apartment was only a few stops away, and the thought of waiting for an overpriced cab made my decision for me. I'd walk to the next station through the service tunnel. Stupid, I know, but it was only 3 blocks underground. Quick shortcut. What could go wrong? I found the service door surprisingly unlocked and slipped inside. The air immediately changed. It was colder, much colder than it should be. A damp chill that clung to my coat, and the tracks, ... Something was wrong with the tracks. They weren't parallel. As I walked, they started to curve away from each other, splitting off and vanishing into 2 separate pitch-black arches. But there was a third path, right between them, a narrow service walkway, almost like a ramp, leading down into even deeper darkness. Curiosity, or maybe just sheer stupidity, got the better of me. I took it. Step by echoing step, I descended. The sound of my own footsteps on the gritty concrete was loud in the silence. The walkway opened onto a platform, a station that wasn't on any map I'd ever seen. And it quickly became clear this wasn't a station for trains. It was for a different kind of commuter. The platform was ancient. The tiles, probably from before the war, were cracked and stained with age and dampness. The air was thick with a strange smell, like ozone after a lightning strike mixed with wet wool, and it wasn't empty. Dozens of people stood silently, all facing the dark tunnel ahead. They were like a snapshot from history. Men in 1920s suits, women in 1950s poodle skirts, even a kid in 1980s punk gear with a faded leather jacket. They stood perfectly still. So still, I realized none of them were breathing. My eyes scanned the grimy wall until I found a sign, the letters barely legible under layers of dirt. It read, "Wait here for the final connection. Do not speak to other passengers. Your ticket will be checked upon boarding." A ticket. A wave of pure, cold panic washed over me. One had to get out of there. I spun around, ready to run back up the walkway, but it was gone. Service door, the ramp, everything. There was just a solid, weeping wall of old brick. I was trapped. Just then, one of the passengers, a woman in a heavy 1940s coat, turned her head toward me. The movement was slow, agonizingly slow, like a clockwork doll winding down. Her eyes weren't eyes. They were smooth, dark buttons sewn onto her face. She raised a single, gloved finger to where her lips should have been. A sound whispered through the station, seeming to come from the walls themselves, a sibilant hiss that vibrated in my bones. The inspector, hears hesitation. From the depths of the tunnel, a low, dragging sound began. It was the noise of metal scraping on stone, a sound that set my teeth on edge. A light appeared, but it wasn't the bright, piercing headlight of a train. It was a single swaying lantern casting long, dancing shadows that made the tunnel writhe. Behind it, a figure emerged. It was tall, impossibly thin, and draped in a conductor's uniform that was far too long. The frayed cuffs brushing against the grimy tracks. The inspector. It moved with a jerky, unnatural gait, like a marionette with tangled strings. It stopped at the edge of the platform, its shadow stretching out over the silent crowd. It had no face. Just a concave, hollow emptiness under its conductor's cap, a void that seemed to suck in the light. It held out a gloved hand, palm up. It was checking tickets. One by one, the passengers responded. Each raised a hand, but glowing faintly in their palms weren't paper tickets. They were moments. Shimmering, bright moments from their lives. I saw a flash of a bride's smiling face on her wedding day. I heard the echo of a child's unrestrained laughter. I felt the warmth of a final, peaceful breath being released. For each passenger, the inspector would give a slight nod. The light in their palm would flicker and then vanish, sucked into the glowing lantern it carried. Once their fare was collected, the passenger would step silently off the platform, onto the tracks, and walk into the tunnel, disappearing into the darkness. It was a fair collection of the soul. They were paying with the brightest, most precious moments of their lives for passage too. Wherever the final connection went, the dragging sound of its feet grew closer. Scrape, drag, scrape, drag. Soon it was my turn. The inspector stood right in front of me. Its empty face, that terrifying void, regarded me. It held out its hand. I had nothing. My heart pounded against my ribs as I desperately searched my mind. My life felt so rushed, so stressful, so mundane. Wake up, work, sleep, repeat. There was no single, brilliant moment that stood out. Nothing bright enough to pay this fare. The inspector's head tilted, as if it understood my predicament, my spiritual poverty. Then it did something I didn't expect. It reached out its other hand, not to take, but to offer. Floating in its palm was a swirling vortex of stolen moments, pure joy. Deep love, triumphant celebrations, all glowing with an intensity I'd never known. It was offering me a ticket, stolen one. All I had to do was take it. And by taking it, I knew I would be condemning one of these other silent souls to wander these tunnels forever, unable to pay their fare. The dragging sound was right behind me now. I could feel the absolute cold emanating from its uniform, a cold that had nothing to do with the temperature. I looked at the stolen memory in its hand, then at the silent figures waiting. I made my choice. I'm on the tracks now, walking. My hand is closed around a ticket that glows with a gentle warmth. It's a memory of a Christmas morning, children opening presents by a fireplace, a memory that isn't mine. The inspector's lantern bobs ahead, a guiding star in the endless dark.
Wow.
The other passengers, the ones who paid their fare, are behind me. We are the final connection, marching toward our destination. And back on that hidden platform, a new figure stands, silent and waiting. A figure dressed in my clothes, with my face, standing empty-handed, waiting for the next lost soul to miss their train and be forced to make a choice. The subway isn't just for the living, it's a repository for the memories they leave behind. And the fare. The fare is always more than you think you can pay. And that brings us to the end of another tale from the Oasis. We hope you enjoyed this journey into the extraordinary. Here at Narrative Oasis, we're dedicated to bringing you the most captivating stories for your pleasure. And trust me, the adventure is far from over. There are many more tales waiting to be told. If you're hungry for more thrills and excitement right now, be sure to check out our previous video. You won't be disappointed. To make sure you don't miss what's coming next, hit that like button, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel to stay connected. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next story.